G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza and I'm going to be doing a tutorial today on Shape Tweens in Adobe Flash. This is going to be an interesting one because if you're not familiar with Shape Tweens and you're kind of introducing yourself to Flash, it can be very confusing, frustrating and quickly dismissible. Dismissible. I can clearly picture when I first tried Shape Tweens and I thought, this doesn't do what I want it to do, and then I didn't use them, and then I needed them for things that I didn't know I needed them for, and eventually I found uses for them that were useful. But the problem is, Shape Tweens, the name itself conveys an idea that you can shape tween, you turn one shape into another shape. Now that is what a shape tween is, but the problem is the complexity with which it can handle shape tweens. So we would, in our mind's eye, first imagine that we might have a shape that could be someone's face in this direction. We could have a nose, eyes, looking over here, like this, maybe a little mouth, and some ears and a head, right? So we've got this face here, no hair, just a head like this, okay? This is what I initially thought Shape Tweens did in Adobe Flash. I thought that I could draw a head like that, and then let's say 100 frames later, hit F7, use my, onion skin, and draw the head, let's say facing the viewer. Right, so let's turn the head, work with the same sort of shapes, but basically have him front on. So have the ear appear out the side there. Okay, so I initially, when I first started mucking around with Shape Tweens, thought I could essentially tween this shape into this shape. Now, anyone who is familiar with Shape Tweens and how to use them knows that this is ridiculous. Anyone who's new to Flash might have tried this recently and thought, no, it didn't work, because what happens is when you right click and you create a shape tween, yeah, boom. So it's not quite what I had pictured, is it? So no, Shape Tweens do not do that. In fact, Shape Tweens are so difficult to control that even doing something as simple as, let's say I draw a square and I want to over here, whoops, actually I'll have to do a new layer. See, that's the other thing too, is you can't share layers with Shape Tweens. They've got to all be their own individual Shape Tween. So let's say I draw a square, and then over here, create a new keyframe and want to do a star. You'd think, okay, that's a pretty simple shape, surely. When it's all filled in, there's nothing in the middle to complicate it between these two shapes. If I right click and create a shape tween, it's not the most charming transition. It's not awful, but it's not symmetrical. It doesn't kind of pop in at the corners the same on each side. So for example, this corner here, this corner here ends up being that corner there, whereas this corner here ends up being in the middle of that, between those there. So it's totally random, you know, it's ridiculous. Even if I did rigid shapes, like let's say using this shape thingy here, and drew a box with the box tool, then I drew a 5-sided star with the same tool. So let's say I use the tools to draw them so they're not as flawed as the ones I drew. We still end up with the same problem. It's not very easy to control. Now, what Shape Tweens do is they take the actual construction of it. They take all the vectors that make up the drawing and morph them into each other. So when I select this sub-selection tool and hit whatever shape, you can see all the vertices that make up the shape. We click on this, we can see all the vertices that make up this shape. We click over here, we can see that there are a lot less vertices on this square. There are 4. Whereas on my hand-drawn square, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's about 20 or 30 different vertexes, right? So all these little points make up the equation that becomes the drawing. There are many, more on the one I hand drew than on this one. So what a shape tween is trying to do is taking the amount I have here of vertices and then on frame 100 morph them with these. Now the problem is on frame 1, on this box at the bottom I have 4 vertices, and on this box at the bottom I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 okay? So how does it do that? It has to invent vertices randomly, right? So if I create a keyframe here and select my square, you'll see that there are 10 because it's had to invent 10 vertices, but it's just invented them randomly, and it's quite weird, like it's difficult to control. So this is not how to use Shape Tweens. This is what you don't want to use Shape Tweens for. I'm going to go through 3 different methods that I would use Shape Tweens for. I'm going to go through simple Shape Tweens, complex Shape Tweens, and mixing Shape Tweens and motion tweens. Okay, so first things first, simple Shape Tweens. The most common Shape Tween I use, and I will admit I use it all the time, is a simple box with a color in the middle, and I fade it. Okay, so at the start and end, the shape is exactly the same, but I alpha it out and add a Shape Tween. Now, it's quite a simple approach. It also enables me, if I want to go from one color to another. So I can Shape Tween from black to red. I can Shape Tween from blue to red if I want to. Hurry up, there we go. Okay, so we get that array kind of happen automatically. The reason why this always works is because the vertices, if I hit A and click on this, the vertices say the same every time, those same 4 vertices. I'm probably using the wrong name of reference. I don't know if they're vertices, that's what they're called in like Maya, but they're vector points. So that is the simplest Shape Tween really that you can use, and I use these all the time. I use them for fade outs and ins in animations. I cover the whole screen in a black and fade in into an alpha, things like that. Another thing you can do is you can do things like create a circle with a gradient in the middle there, and let me just select a gradient. I can hold shift and click and drag and create my circle there. So I've got my circle gradient, and on the outside, let's go white and alpha 0. Okay, so I've got this point of light there. And what I might want to do is have the point of light grow. So on the last frame, I'll have it end up being that. But on the first frame, I'll just change the gradient. I'll bring it in. Let's pull that out. And let's change the color to a yellow, like that. And now when I Shape Tween, you can see it alter between those. So you can use Shape Tweens to tween gradients, which you can't do in motion tweens as well, and that's quite useful. And you can see that we can get some pretty cool effects pretty quickly, and they're quite easy to control, right? Whereas with these on the left here, you can tell that they're not too easy to control. So the most useful function I have personally for Shape Tweens is morphing and controlling color changes, light changes, things like glows and gradients, morphing gradients. Another one that I use quite often is I might get a square like this and get a gradient like that. And let's pull my gradient edges up there at the top and like that. There we go. And I'm just going to add a whole bunch of these. Okay. And then on the last frame, I'm going to just select it and pull everything down on the other side, and I'm going to change the alpha of them throughout the piece. Now, you can be more controlled about it than I am here, but I'm just kind of giving an example as to how you might use it. When creating that Shape Tween, you can see that we've got this gradient effect. Now, I can do this on top of a metal object and create a bit of a sheen look, like a shine. Let's say I move a dagger and I want a small point of attention on the dagger. When the thief character pulls the dagger out, I might do this shine effect on it, have the gradient change to have that shine glisten to it. I know that it looks a bit distracting with, you know, that point of light under it, but you get the idea. So the best way to use simple Shape Tweens is to alter color and light and gradient, and we can get some cool effects. Of course, if you want to tween the shapes themselves, another simple way of using Shape Tweens, let's say if I draw a green box, is to, on another keyframe, on a duplicate keyframe, hit V and find your little movement thingy. What do you call it? Just find the points and move the points themselves, right? So that way, let's say I want that shape. If I had a Shape Tween, it's going to morph exactly as I wanted it to, right? because they're exactly the number of points. Now there's a problem here, right? It didn't morph exactly as I wanted to because the top right corner doesn't end up at the top right. It actually ends up at the top left. This is where people get frustrated. This is where people go, "Rah!" But I'm going to show you something that will save your frustration. We can add Shape Tween hints. So I'm going to hit V just to have my normal selection tool and select this. And I'm going to hit Control Shift H, H for hints. And you'll see this little circle appears. Now don't let go of Control Shift. I'm still holding it, right? And that means I can click on this, move it up there to the top right, okay? Now I've got A, B, C, and now I'll let go of my Control Shift, and it means no more will be created after I dragged it out. So for as long as I'm holding Control and Shift, each time I drag that point, it also creates a new one for me to work with, right? And if I want to add another one, I just, again, hit Control Shift H, but I won't do that because I only need 4. And now I've got A, B, C, and D, and I'm just going to move these in a clockwise formation. So I've got A, B, C, and D. And now when I go to the very last frame, you'll see I've got D there. So what form did it go in? I'm going to move D down to that point. See how it turned green? C, B, and A. These are called shape hints, and what that means is it tells vertice A to end up where vertice A is. I'm going to call them vertices, I'm just used to calling them that. And that way, when the shape tween happens, it happens exactly as we plan it. Now, in theory, if we had enough shape hints, we could get this to shape tween into this, but it's quite an extensive task, and we're not going to mess with that. And it's the amount of time it would take longer than frame by frame animation. So there's absolutely no point. But that, my friends, is how to create a simple shape tween and to, in a minor way, control its motion. And that can be quite useful. Now we're going to talk about complex shape tweens. When I talk about complex shape tweens, what am I talking about? Now, here is a shape that I'm going to work with. Now, when we're talking about complex shape tweens, that doesn't necessarily mean overly detailed like something here on the left. It just means as a shape, this is much more complex than this square. So using this to create a shape tween, I would think would be quite complex. Now, what I want to try and do, and this might not work because that's how unpredictable shape tweens can be, is morph this man into the female counterpart. So I'm just going to get my rectangle tool and draw, and I'm just going to drag that in. I'll put the lock back on. Drag that in and then drag this out. And then we've got the female equivalent. And I'm going to just take this and change the color to a pink. There we go. So I'm going to try and change this blue man to the pink lady. What's going to happen if I right click and go shape tween? It's messy, right? So the top half is quite fine, to be honest. It's not that bad, but the bottom half is messy. So how would I do this? To be honest, I wouldn't actually do it all as one. I would just have a totally separate layer and just have a dress appear and just kind of have a shape that would be a box appear on top. So that's why I kind of find it irrelevant talking about doing complex shape tweens, because there are really simple workarounds. For the sake of argument, I'm going to show you how, but I'll show you the really quick workaround quickly and just show you how much simpler it is to find a quick workaround. I'd just take this man and, let's say, put him over here on his own layer. And I'd create a shape tween, first of all, just with the same shape with the color changing. Okay, so you'll notice that there is no warping or anything with the shape, because all that's changing is the color. The next thing I would do is create a layer on top of that. And on the first frame, just draw a square, but totally hidden inside this man's geometry, okay? And I'd shrink it a little more just so it's completely hidden. And then here on the last frame, I'd drag that out like this. I'd make sure the color was the same, and I would add a shape tween. And you can see how, whoops, it morphs weirdly, but you'll find that weirdly, the solution can just be tweaking the shape. So I'm just gonna skew that top in, and all of a sudden it actually shape tweens the way I want it to. So it can be so finicky and annoying, and that was just working with a shape tween that's separated and easier to work, right? So that would be my workaround, and it's much simpler. If I was trying to work with this complex method, I would try and use those handles. So I'd add the shape tween and I would go Control Shift H, and try and place them. So I've got A, B and C on the hand, and I'd go over here, C, B, A, and see how that looks. Okay, see, so it's kept the hand still. I want to go back to the start, Control Shift H, D, Control Shift H, E, Control Shift H, F. Now let's go to this end frame, F, E, D. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so that's worked effectively. I've kept the hands perfectly still. You'll notice the armpits go in and out a little bit, but I'm not going to mess with that because there's really no point. So things get so messy so quickly that with complex shape tweens, I would venture to not really use them. I would just do simple shape tweens, but a lot of them on a lot of layers, right? So here we have the man changing color and then another layer with the dress. Shape tweening and changing color. That would be a simple approach. Now, the best use for shape tweens functionally in terms of complex use is with motion tweens and with something very specific in mind. And so what I've got here as an example is this character called Larry from a series I made years ago. And this is a turnaround I did where this shot, this sort of turnaround would be impossible without shape tweens, and I'm going to break it down and show you how I actually did it. Now if I go inside this movie clip, and keep in mind if you want to check it out and see how it's all subdivided, you can download the reference file. You can see that it's all motion tweens up here, but that's because everything is a movie clip. Okay, so in some of these motion tweens, it's all shape tween dominated. Now this is starting to get quite complicated. If I show, let's say for example, this foot, and enter the movie clip, you'll see all it is motion tweens. And I'm going to break this down. The first motion tween is the line work on top. Okay, so motion tween with lines, shape tweens with the lines are quite easy to control, and I would have used those handles as well. Then I had a mask. This was an area that followed the same line work but was filled in, and then I had an internal mask area that was quite simply a box with a line that sort of changed shape. So I had the shape itself, and then I had the masked area that acted as the shadow, and that adds that sort of shape tween. Now, of course, I could do this frame by frame, but because it was over 100 frames and I wanted it to move quite slowly, if it was frame by frame, it would show as quite shaky, whereas using it in shape tweens is much more effective. And that way I could tween that itself and get a very effective sort of look. So in showing it all together, we can see lots of different little elements that are shape tweens. So for example, if I go in the head, you'll see that there are quite a number of shape tweens. Shape tweens are green and motion tweens are blue. So we're going to have to explore this a bit because there's quite a lot and it can be quite complicated. So the first thing I did was create a guide with two shape tweens. I have a circle and then a line, and I have a shape tweens with these showing a motion, and this was basically creating a 3D effect that I wanted to end up with, and I had something very clear to follow, and of course I had a line in the middle to act as the eye line. With this I followed it and added the back ear. Notice it's behind the head and then it goes in front of the head, and added the other ear to create that sort of turnaround look, and slowly added piece by piece everything that would end up becoming the head. Now we have this masked area, which inside is the eyes, the nose, hairline, and skin. And what's tweened is this skin because it acts as the shadow, and that's just kind of shape tweened across. And everything else is kind of pulled in around that masked area. And when I show it all in the context of the mask, you can see how it's all pulled around like that. We get that sort of globe effect. When the ears are shown in inclusion with that, we're starting to get this 3D look, but it's not quite there yet. So we've added the line work on the outside. We've made sure that there's this hair on the front, which I believe is shape tweened as well. When I go inside, no, it's not, it's motion tweened. Actually, no, it is shape tweened. I had the turning. Oh, I see. So it was a graphic, and then I added this shaking, waving effect. Okay, so it's really working them into each other and adding layers upon layers, clips upon clips, until we get the effect we want. So the mouth was a complex one, for example, where I had the specific shape that needed to change to face the front and then face the other side. And then inside that was a masked area that made the teeth, and then line work on top of that framed it properly. And then everything locked and shown and in place, we have this head that slowly turns around and follows the guidelines that I initially set up. And then when I hop out and show it in context, the head is tweened as well and kind of skewed to make sure that the shape is retained, and we get this globally turnaround sort of effect. So as you can see here on the left, they are examples as to what not to do with shape tweens. You can't draw a picture of a dog and then draw a picture of a cat and then shape tween, and it will magically work really well between those shapes. It doesn't work that way. It's not an image tween, right? The best way to use shape tweens is in the simplest way, and they can be really, really effective. And even with the complicated things happening on the very right with this character turning around, that's only possible because it's all done in little simple pieces. I'm not in any way creating a drawing of him on the side, then middle, and then the other side, and it magically morphing it. I'm doing it all in layers and all with masks and all this stuff to make it work effectively. Now, if this sounds complicated, please check out the reference file and envelop yourself into the clip there and see how it's constructed. And you can see how the shape tweens and motion tweens mix to create something complicated, but in itself they're actually not complicated. They're quite simple. They're as simple as these simple shape tweens here on the middle left. So I hope this tutorial has been useful for you, ladies and gentlemen. As you may have been able to tell, they're frustrating at times, but they're also very effective at times. And this character on the right wouldn't have been possible without shape tweens. It just wouldn't have been, because we're just getting that really easily manipulatable effect, and that we couldn't get with simple motion tweens. So thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Make sure to check out the link in the description to download the reference files, and until next time, I will see you later.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy my videos. You can download the reference files from this tutorial by clicking the link in the description. And remember to share any art, animation, or game you make on Newgrounds.com. Until next time, see you later.